Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Wildcat Week as we bring you the best of Indiana Wesleyan University sports, highlights, and updates. I'm Randall King, sitting in this week for Roger Alcock. To get things started, we're going to talk about the men's baseball team, which began its season last week in Georgia. They played 4 games in that state, came back with a 2-2 record, and joined me now to preview that season coming up is head baseball coach Rich Benjamin. Coach, I'm thinking about the month of February when your guys are just ready to get out and play somewhere, so you head south, but right now the weather's kind of favorable and it's almost baseball weather already. Is that a gift for you just to get out and play, or is the nicer weather good for your team too?
Yeah, it's a huge blessing for our team to get a chance to play an hour away from home and sleep in our own beds and get a chance to be in class on Thursday rather than using it as a travel day. And so we're excited to get a chance to get 4 games out of the way this weekend and enjoy some 60-degree weather locally.
So you're talking about something in Indiana. You're going to go down near Westfield at Grant Park.
Yes, sir.
And that will be the upcoming weekend. Some people are watching us at that time. Let's go back to Georgia. I know you have kind of a long, never-ending off season. Your guys are ready to actually play baseball and not do drills. What did you learn early here in the second season, splitting that series as you went down south?
Sure. You know, we went down with a couple seniors that have added a lot of value to our program last year, and a couple additional juniors, and some returning freshmen who are now sophomores that have been some really good leaders for us, and then a ton of freshmen. And so I think in the opener, you know, between your pitcher, DH, there's 10 players competing, and we had 6 freshmen, 3 sophomores, and a senior in that lineup. So it was very youthful, but we could see the drill work piece, the skill set piece start to take over and have some success. And the thing that you can't do a ton inside is your approach. And so how do you handle different arms and seeing the ball on the field and how it plays on the field and so forth. And so for us, it was a benefit just to get outside and get some game time information for these players to come in this week and create a game plan for their continued development.
What does it give you to have to go out there, play 7, 9, whatever innings, and learn how to manage those game situations, plus players learning how to do that? What does it show you?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really hard on the players. You know, it's when you're a young, even if you return every player, and you never do, every team has to find their own identity, and then within that, each individual player has to find their own identity as well. And it takes time to unpack all that. So even though we try to over-communicate with each guy, and I think our leaders do a great job with our young guys of communicating what the college game is going to be like and those challenges that you have to work through. There's nothing like going through it yourself and really having to navigate for real, like what real life is like in that scenario. So I think it's really hard on them, but the makeup of the guys is exceptionally well. And so I believe that, you know, they'll work through that process in a healthy way. They'll become the best version of themselves, you know, for their personal development and their personal leadership, as well as leading their teammates well.
We mentioned Grant Park going out there this weekend to Westfield. You get to play locally. You get to play in really like opening weekend kind of weather, what you hope for. We don't usually see that in February. What do you see going into that? What are you going to try to build on, and what about some of your opponents?
Yeah, you know, right now, you know, we're really just competing against ourselves. The more at-bats we get, the more innings we throw, the more double play opportunities we have to turn, the more comfortable we're going to be. And so, you know, on paper right now, it's just about trying to get some arms, some work in, so we get a feel for who they are and get them moving, and then trying to get hitters, you know, 2, 3, 4 starts, some pinch hit at-bats off the bench, and just put people in opportunities that we're going to benefit the team when we get to conference play.
Baseball is a sport around here that, because of our delayed spring most years, we don't see you guys much. You go on the road, which is wise because you can't get the reps locally.
Right.
Do you kind of look at this almost, coach is never going to look at a game this way, but it's almost like a preseason to set you up for that Crossroads League schedule?
Yes and no. I think when you feel like you have a team that has an opportunity to play in a national tournament, that national tournament is going to be seeded. And your body of work in the regular season is what seeds that tournament. So in our program and the programs that I've been a part of before this one, the focus is every game has tremendous value. But I also think, you know, you have the competition side of it and the performance side of it, but yet there's still that preparing aspect of it too for the future. So you're trying to make decisions with both in mind. You know, how do you set yourself up so you're successful in conference and you've gathered the information that you need, and yet still you're competitive in this moment in a game that's going to matter later in the year when they seed the postseason tournament.
All right, well, we're going to looking forward to seeing more highlights from you guys early and often as we get into the heart of the season. Coach Rich Benjamin from IWU, thanks for coming in early to help us talk baseball. Sure. And when we come back, the Lady Wildcats faced off against two Crossroads League opponents in Lucky Arena against St. Francis and Mount Vernon Nazarene. Women's basketball coach, head coach Chet Foraker joins me to talk about the finish to their season, so don't go away. Welcome back to Wildcat Week. The Lady Wildcats faced off against St. Francis University in Lucky Arena on Saturday, February 11th. On Senior Day, the game was named the Game of the Week for NAIA Division II. The Lady Wildcats held a lead through the entire first half of play. At halftime, the score, the Wildcats led the Cougars 21-17. Lady Wildcats gave up the advantage going into the fourth quarter, trailing the Cougars 34-31. The Wildcats only made 17 field goals in the game, which is their lowest total of the season, and could not keep up, eventually falling to the Cougars by a score of 54-46. Sophomore Nicole Ignashik produced her first career double-double by scoring 15 points and pulling down 10 rebounds. Junior Anna Imhoff also scored 11 points and grabbed 8 rebounds in the loss. After a tough loss to those Cougars of St. Francis, the Lady Wildcats welcomed the Cougars of Mount Vernon Nazarene into Lucky Arena. The Lady Wildcats had a 15-point lead during the third quarter, but the Cougars did not go down without a fight and took the lead on a three-pointer with 14 seconds left. Mount Vernon went on to upset the Lady Wildcats with a final score of 71-69. Junior Anna Imhoff led the way, again with 17 points, while also dishing out 5 assists, and she also had 5 steals. Senior Kelsey Key also put up 17 points while grabbing 8 rebounds. After those two hard losses to St. Francis and Mount Vernon, I am joined by head women's basketball coach Chet Foraker. And Coach, before we look at some of those highlights from Mount Vernon, just a real quick question. Two back-to-back really, really tough losses.
Yeah, they were. They were very, very, very hard losses. We will keep going. We have to keep going, but it is difficult when you lose 2 of your starters. You have 2 senior starters, and there's a lot of point production there. There's a lot of maturity there, and there's a lot of support, and just makes everyone else feel comfortable. And when they're gone, it's the people that have taken their place have done good jobs. They've played hard and all, but it's just hard to replace them. It really is.
Well, let's go back and look at some of those Mount Vernon highlights. As we're shooting this, it was just last night. Tough to look at, but really did get on top of them early in the game. Now there's some of their outside shooting that played a factor later on, but there's a good point in these first couple of quarters where it looks like a bounce-back game. There's Key getting on the inside for a nice 2-pointer.
Yeah, she's, of course, Kelsey is one. She's another one of our seniors. And there's Nicole, who has been doing a great job in there for Haley. But last night with Beidelman, who is one of the top post people in the NAIA, it's a tough battle.
At this point, 21-10. And we're in the second quarter here. Did you see anything that they were doing that gives you pause in that first half?
Anything that Mount Vernon was doing?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're a good outside shooting team, and they did hit some threes in the first half, but we were controlling the ball. We had only
Brittany Washington there driving, doing what she needs to do.
We only had 4 turnovers at halftime, and then when you look at the total, and there's no question, as we got that going down there was just a careless pass. I mean, there's really no reason nor excuse for that. It's just a mistake. But the thing that happened is, we didn't handle their press well, and that's where we turned the ball over. And
turn to the third quarter now. You're up 42-33. You didn't quite see the play there, but you see them kind of coming alive a little bit, closing that gap. What were you seeing, inside versus outside, that sort of.
Well, the thing that happened in the last probably 4 or 5 minutes was that Vitalman really started making her presence known down below, and we just weren't able to handle it. And she got several easy shots. They hit a couple threes, and they took the ball away. And, you know, when you have a steal on they were all-court press, giving us the all-court press, and when you get a steal, you not only do they get 2 points probably, but you lose 2. So it's a 4-point deal.
You see players doing well here, 66-55, and we're just 5 minutes to go.
Right. But there again, you see there's Vitalman who's now, and Nicole's out of the game because she's in foul trouble. So
the lack of the inside presence there really does make a difference down the stretch.
Does, yeah.
And then a couple of the open looks, open threes, just killer in that situation. Talk about this end of the game situation here.
Well, this is where they were pressing us, and here we had the opportunity to get the shot, and the ball just gets away from us, and you know, it's just that.
Mount Vernon hits the three there, so you're up 70-69.
And there were.
Oh, that was the scrum that kind of ended up with it out of bounds, and they had to think about it a little bit. Possession goes back to Mount Vernon.
And they actually determined that by looking at the video that was there, and that's pretty interesting because you see we lost the possession on that video examination, and yet that is not done at every game. Mm-hmm. So it really does raise a point. If we're going to use video to make a determination, then we need to use it in every game, at every place. And if we're not doing it everywhere, then don't do it anywhere.
Significant question, for another time to be taken up with the league level, but I hear what you're saying. Let's just talk in the closing seconds we have here, Coach. You're stepping in interim. At this point, pretty much you're playing on emotion. You're down some starters. What's the motivational cues you have going into this final regular season game and then setting up for the tournament? What are the things that you need to tell these players?
Well, you know, these are athletes. These players know about competition. They know about desire. They know about giving everything they have, and they will do that. So we're not about to give up. I mean, we still have the tournament to go through, and you know, we really believe that if we can get a streak going, that we can be very competitive, and we could come out. And if we could just finish second in that, it would help us a lot.
Well, it's been a tough month, but you've got a body of work there to look at, and I guess that's part of your cues too. Thank you so much, Coach Chet Foraker, as the Lady Wildcats struggle through the end of the season. When we come back, the Wildcats stayed in Lucky Arena to face off against two opponents in St. Francis and Mount Vernon Nazarene. Men's basketball head coach Greg Tonagel joins me to break down those games. Don't go away. Welcome back to Wildcat Week. The men's basketball team welcomed the Cougars of St. Francis University into Lucky Arena on Saturday, February 11th. In the first matchup since the national championship game on January 14th, the Wildcats won in double OT after storming back from a 17-point deficit. On Saturday afternoon, the Cougars came out firing on all cylinders, leading almost the entire first half. Once again, the Cougars held a halftime lead with a score of 51-42. Deja vu all over again. The Wildcats opened the second half with a 37-13 scoring run to take a 79-64 advantage on a Bob Peters three-pointer with 8 minutes left in the game. Cougars got no closer than 8 points for the rest of the game, and the Wildcats eventually won with a score 94-83. Senior Bob Peters scored 26 points while shooting 9 of 14 from the field, 4 of 7 from the three-point arc. Sophomore Trevor Waite and junior Psycho Jallo had career nights while scoring 14 points and 15 points respectively. After a big win against St. Francis, the Wildcats stayed home in Lucky Arena to face off against the Cougars of Mount Vernon Nazarene on Tuesday, February 14th. Sophomore Grant Sawatsky saved the best for last as he tallied all 9 of his points in the final 3 minutes in an 84-80 win over Mount Vernon Nazarene, the final regular season game in Lucky Arena. Junior Jacob Johnson led the Wildcats with 23 points, had 7 rebounds, shooting 10 of 15 from the field. Senior Lane Mahurin also had 20 points and recorded 7 rebounds while dishing out 5 assists. Indiana Wesleyan, well, after a couple of big wins heading into the Crossroads League tournament, we're joined now by head basketball coach for the men, Greg Tonagel. And Coach, catching your breath a little bit after Tuesday night of this week. That was maybe not what you expected, at least the early part of that game.
Yeah, you got to give Mount Vernon credit for coming in here after a long road trip and being ready to play. And I think we took a good punch from them. They hit a season high, 13 threes on us. And we weathered that by getting the ball in the paint and making key plays down the stretch.
Do you worry at all about this team closing out games, or have they shown you something? You had a couple of rough spots there.
Yeah.
You go to Huntington, you lose. Some of those games look on paper not to be that close, but you know that they're rivalry games. Has this team shown you something the last couple of games down the stretch about closing?
Well, it's not closing. We've actually been a much better second half team. It's just consistency of play. So we've built a lot of double-digit leads to see them evaporate, whether that's in the first half or in the middle of the second half. So this team just needs to continue to get better at just consistent play. So when we build that 10-point lead, it goes to 15, it goes to 20. And we've done it in spurts, we just haven't done it enough.
Defensively, is it there where you need it?
That's an area we can improve. So we've seen the highs of our defense. Second half for St. Francis, I mean, we do a tremendous job. First half, not so much night and day. So it's that multi-personality that we have to our defense. Sometimes we're aggressive, we put people on their heels. Sometimes we sit back and we get on our heels.
Now let's look back at some of those highlights of the game against Mount Vernon, a game that, as you said, kind of interesting. Now there's Johnson coming off a hot game, couple of hot games in a row. Did you like what you saw? Of course, Lane getting one of the early looks there too.
Yeah, there's no coincidence that Jacob Johnson's playing his best basketball of the year. He's putting in a lot of time. He's committed right now, and it's fun to see a guy see some rewards for the hard work he's putting in.
Back here, Lane on the outside. I don't know if I've ever been able to ask you this. You like to see him go out?
I love to see Lane just expand his game, and he's done that. You know, from a kid who only shot layups his freshman year to he will stretch the defense now at the three-point line. It's a credit to what he's done with Summers. And how about Ben Carlson? I mean, you talk about a guy. I was
just going to say Ben Carlson. We were calling his name a lot during that game.
He's just given us a lot of production. He comes off the bench ready to play. He's a guy who can play back to the basket. He's been playing really, really hard. And once again, another kid who has put in the time and the work to put himself in a position to produce for this team.
There you see him, boy. That kind of consistent post play and the things we don't see, not the points. You've got to love that as you get into this postseason looking ahead.
Yeah, I love hard workers, and Ben's a guy that has put in the time and is seeing the fruits of it. So you got to tip your hat to him.
Looking at Mount Vernon here, what were they showing you as we kind of came down to halftime and then looking to the second half? They just never seem to go away. I was watching that game and I was thinking, why is this a 2-point game? Why is this a 3-point game?
I mean, they played well. They really did. I didn't think we played all that bad. I think they played really well. And to beat a team after giving up 13 threes, and they weren't all easy threes. I mean, they earned a lot of those, as we saw earlier. There's about a 28-footer that they made. So our guys stayed with it, and when they had to make plays, they found a way to make some.
Looking here in the second half, and you would get those 8 or 9-point advantages, and that's why I said sometimes I'd look up and I say, how is this a 2-point game? But then they come out and knock down something like that.
Yeah, like I said, they made timely shots, but then so did we.
Good opportunistic play there as they turn around in transition. Now you got a 2-point ball game almost halfway through the second half.
Yeah, the thing about Mount Vernon is they do have a variety of guys. They don't have one scorer, but they've got multiple scorers, and they really spread it out on us. They had a couple bench guys go for some double-digit points that we hadn't seen in a while.
Of course, we're not here to talk about Mount Vernon, but I'm just thinking still relatively new in the league, you're seeing them, especially this season, I think, make their presence known and saying, hey, we belong in this crossroads, and they're going to make things interesting down the stretch.
Yeah, there's just a cluster of teams that are fighting for that last spot probably to get into postseason, and they're in the mix and they're in the conversation. And I think they could go into the national tournament and win multiple games. You can't say that about a lot of teams in our
Big
league.
run by Coffee, or that wasn't Coffee, that was Zawatsky.
Yeah.
I remember that one rolling around, and we said, wow.
You know, it was a great decision. Jeff Clark said, hey, let's put Grant in. We needed a spark defensively. Well, he comes in and gives us 9 points offensively. And he was ready to play after sitting for a long time. I was really proud of him, just for the mental focus. Step up, hit big free throws, step up, hit a big shot. That's what you need from your point guard, and we got that out of him.
Yeah, you could have had an interesting final minute there, but I think being able to win it somewhat on the line and win it with defense kind of took them out of what got them really close there at the end, if that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, sure. And we dodged one right there. Had good initial defense, but with an air ball, it is tough to rebound those air balls. They end up with it, and they get probably their best shooter with a shot. So you got to give
Lane goes 1 of 2 on the free throw line. You just needed the one. Would have liked to have had both of them, but you needed the one, and then you close that out. So we know where things stand. People follow the Crossroads League. They know that you're looking at a 2 seed right now. All things work out. I know you've still got a game to play Saturday, sure. and then you've got to start looking at that positioning, but. Happy with a 2 seed, you'd rather be 1, but if you can get in that, you can get one more game with Bethel. You think your guys want that?
Well, what I'm looking more is big picture, the trajectory of this team. Where are we moving defensively? So we got to continue to improve upon containing the basketball and not fouling teams. And then offensively, we've picked up some steam here offensively. We're shooting well over 50%, like 55% in our last 3 games. We're moving the basketball. So, I mean, the seeding is what it is. It ain't going to change at this point. So that's not my focus and my concerns. Where are we headed? Because as postseason approaches, it's about who gets hot at the right time. So we're trying to figure that out.
Now, someone may have seen this, and you've already played at Spring Arbor. Let's just do about 15 seconds. Tough to go that far and play. Is it like Mount Vernon? You never know that far.
Yeah, no, that's with it. Mount Vernon's another animal. I mean, 4 hours is a big deal,
yeah.
bus, but 2's not bad. And you get off the bus, you got to be ready to play. Spring Arbor's playing to get into a 3 or 4 seed, which would potentially put them into Branson. So we know they're going to come out hungry. We've got to match that intensity.
Everyone is this time of year. Thanks, Coach Greg Tonagel. As we said, Indiana Wesleyan will travel to Spring Arbor University. They'll face off against Cougars in their next game on Saturday, February 18th. The game is the second half of the men and women's doubleheader. That's all we have for you this week. If you'd like to see more of Wildcat Week, you can visit our website, wiwutv.com. It's where we have past episodes, and you'll be able to connect with us online. Again, that's wiwutv.com. We look forward to being back with you next week, and for all of us here on Wildcat Week, we do thank you for watching.